They really did come out well. I'm impressed with this crazy method. It works. This one had a hole in the bag. Look at this. I didn't seal it properly. It's full of water. Look at it. You see? So be careful. This one is perfect. No water in it. So there's one. I'm going to get a plate for these, huh? My hands are so greasy from all this that I can't pick up a plate. There we are. Here's one for you. And here's another. You get the idea. And you can serve them like this. Or you can save them and warm them up in this bag anytime you like. So there's your own homemade sausage recipe. It's not bad at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's quite good. Now, if you're Polish and you're sitting at home laughing at me and telling me about your grandmother's recipe, stop laughing and send me the recipe, all right? Let's get some action here. This is the best I could do today, and it's very nice. It's very good. All right, let's check out the pierogi. Heavenly stuff. I think they're done. Let's get a big platter. We want to drain these, of course, very carefully before we put them on the platter. Oh, I had pierogi the other night at a restaurant, the one I was telling you about on Milwaukee. And the woman makes pierogi you wouldn't believe. She had blueberries, fresh blueberries. This is in the middle of dinner. You have fresh blueberry pierogi with tons of sour cream. Look at that. The wonton skin fell apart. You see that one? The square one? You see it? It's just a goo ball. Back into the pot. We don't need it. But the ones that we made from scratch held fine. They're gorgeous. So let me put some butter on these. Here we are. Oh, better melt some butter. We want to pour some butter on these, and then a bit of brown sugar, brown breadcrumbs, and that'll give us a classic plate that'll look just like a good Polish dinner for you. Let me show you a couple of other dishes for a Polish dinner. I have a pot roast going here that is one of the strangest, most marvelous flavors I've ever run across. But again, you need these mushrooms. If you can't find them, write to an import house. Every major city in the country has somebody in the city that will sell you dried mushrooms. And buy a big sack and store them in a sealed jar, a quart jar, and keep them in your refrigerator. I have 2 pounds in my refrigerator in Tacoma that I bought in San Francisco before I came to Chicago. Big jar. The kids love them. We make marvelous sauces with them. They're just terrific. So here's one pot roast. There we go. You can use a bottom round, use anything you want, but you want to brown the pot roast first. You see, I browned mine rather severely. And we'll throw it in a kettle here. I've got to get enough space to work because I'm waiting for my butter for the pierogi. So let me give you the ingredients now. This is a very interesting dish. I want to throw into the pot, I need some onions. Here we are. Throw into the pot 1 onion along with my pot roast, you see. There we go, a nice onion. And I want to put in 3 dill pickles. Dill pickles in a pot roast? Yes, it's called pot roast with dill. It's a marvelous dish. There we go. Put in the dill pickles. Are you with me on this recipe? Then I want a handful of mushrooms. And I'm using the dried ones. A handful, I'm putting in half a cup. Actually, it's 1.5 ounces before they were soaked. 1.5 ounces of dried mushrooms soaked. And it wouldn't hurt to put in a little of the juice. There we go. And I want a half a dozen peppercorns. Measure it out. You have never heard me measure anything. Just put in some peppercorns, will you? And some bay leaf. A couple of these are awfully small. I was going to say one nice big one, but those are so tiny. Let's not even fiddle around. That's the whole works. I have in the pot then the brown roast. Weighs about 3 pounds. I added 1 large chopped yellow onion, 3 or 4 dried mushrooms soaked for about 1.5 ounces, 6 peppercorns, a bay leaf, and 3 dill pickles all chopped up. And now I want to add to my pot about 1/4 cup of bouillon, beef bouillon, or perhaps your own good stock. I hope you have some left. I'll put this on to cook now for 2 hours. And at the end of 2 hours, let's see, there is a pot roast here somewhere, if I can decide which kettle it's in. Ah, I found it. By sheer weight, I found it. There we go. Oh, listen, I don't want to take that off. Let me tease you for a minute here. I forgot. At the end of the 2 hours of cooking, I want you to put a pint, or half pint, I should say, 1 cup, a half pint of sour cream into this, and that's how we're going to make the gravy for this beautiful pot roast. And stir this in. You see, the pickles and the sour cream will now blend. Good Lord, this thing is rich. You can't believe it, it's so rich. There we are. Let's turn him over here. There we go. He's just delicious. You have a pot roast with pickles and mushroom. Gives it a most unusual flavor. And you're right. It's murder. It's so rich. But I enjoy it. Let's put that out so that you'll know. Actually, I need the room is what I need. Ah. Okay, we'll get it to blend in with our sausages here. The food looking a little heavy. You haven't seen anything yet. Let me get you going on another one. It's time to put the pierogi out, too. Get the butter on these. Just put a smidgen on the top so that they don't stick. And we want some breadcrumbs to add a little color. There we go. Now remember, we have all three kinds on there. So when you serve these, you're going to have to really know which one is the sauerkraut and mushroom, because that's the best one. All right? Let someone else eat the potato and the cheese. Now you're yelling at me. So potato's your favorite. Sauerkraut's mine. It's just delicious. Finally, let's do a hunter stew. This is a strange dish, and I don't know why they call it a hunter stew, because in the old days in Poland, they used to work a week on this dish. They would just keep adding things to it, and they tell me that you're not allowed to eat this the first day. This is really not a good thing until the second day, you see. But I'll tell you how it's done to start with, and we can go from there, all right? Into our pot. I'm using a large, large kettle because this recipe just goes on and on and on. Into our pot, I have placed a quarter pound of salt pork, and I've sautéed a couple of large onions, you see? Then I want to add to that about 4 quarts of sauerkraut. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that 4 quarts of sauerkraut? I think that's about right. All right, does that look about right to you? And we're going to thicken this whole thing. My heat isn't up high enough on this one, but the other one's hot, so it won't matter. Flour, here it is. I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of flour. Sprinkle that in carefully so that you don't get any lumps. What we want to do is thicken the broth that this is going to make, you see? I caught him. It wasn't 2. We put in 3. Oh, all right. You're watching too close. Watching too closely. There we go. Now, the other things that can go in here, of course, are up to the hunter. Depends on what he brings back. I think that's why they call it hunter stew. Either that or he comes home and he's so hungry he's going to shoot you if you don't produce something in a hurry. And my Lord, if it takes 2 days to make this thing, I don't know how the hunter lasted. So it's got to refer to the fact that he would bring home all kinds of game. And into this you can place just about anything you would like in the way of meats, but they must all be cooked ahead of time. You understand me? They're all cooked ahead of time. So I'm going to put in about 1.5 pounds of beef, cut up into cubes and browned. And then we've got to add some Polish sausage, right? So we'll cut up a good chunk of Polish sausage into bite-sized nibbles. Everything's in the bite-sized chunk here. And we'll put that in the pot. And how about here's some pork that I've cooked ahead of time. And we can put this, I simmered with a little bit of a carrot and celery, just a nice soup stock. Put that in the pot. And let's see, how about some ham? Isn't this a kick? And the thing just goes on and on and on. And it doesn't take long to cook, you see, if all your meats are cooked ahead of time. But in my house, I like sauerkraut cooked until it calms down. Can I use that word? I really don't like it to be terribly sharp. There we go. All right. Now, we need a chicken. I have a whole chicken cooked over here. So in he goes. And this whole, there's a carrot. I cooked the carrot in the same kind of broth with a bit of, I cooked the chicken in the same kind of broth with a bit of carrot and of course, some celery leaf. There. Now, we will simmer that whole works. Let me give you the recipe again. Where's the lid for this? We'll bring that whole works to a simmer and cook him for about a half an hour until everything's hot and good, you see. And then we'll add a cup of red wine and we'll bring him to the table with class. I have one and I'll show it to you. Let me give you the whole recipe again for a bigos, a classic bigos. Remember, you can use beef, pork, rabbit, chicken, duck, ham, sausage, veal, anything that runs by the front of the cabin, you see, used to be nailed and eventually would wind up in this big pot. So we sautéed in our kettle, first of all, the pork, salt pork with some onion, a couple of nice yellow onions chopped up very coarsely. And then we added 4 pounds of sauerkraut. Did I put in some dried mushrooms? I want some of those too. Put in some dried mushrooms with your dish. And we added to our sauerkraut a couple of tablespoons of flour to give us a nice thickening. You see? I heard a rock fall in here. Yes, there is. It was a rock in my mushrooms. Wow. You got to be careful with that one. And a little broth wouldn't hurt, would it, huh? There we go. That'll cook beautifully. And I've also added some pepper. We'll put some black pepper in here. And then I want to add a bit of brown sugar to calm it down. Just a tablespoon of brown sugar. And let that cook for about 2 hours. Don't forget the pepper. Let that cook for about 2 hours, and you'll have something that's very tender. Excuse me, 1 hour, and then we'll add the wine. 2 hours is on the pot roast. Boy, am I confusing. If you want recipes, write me. Be glad to send them to you. You think you're having trouble understanding this. I'm not even sure which kettle has what in it here. It is now ready. The bigos is ready to go. We have the brown sugar. That's really our only seasonings, are brown sugar, pepper, and the mushrooms themselves. So we're ready to seal that up and let it go. And then after an hour of cooking, we're going to add a cup of red wine. And that's ready on this pot right now. See, here it is already. Oh, measure your wine very carefully. Oh, don't be silly. What for? And bring that to a simmer again. And look at let me dish that up. Isn't that colossal? Isn't that colossal? All the different meats are sitting there enjoying one another's company. Enjoying themselves indeed. All right. And you can imagine what a feast this would make for the hunter and the huntee. The hunter and the hunter's wife and the child. This is a traditional dish in Poland. It's served on great festivals and all, but I've been warned by my friends that I must not give you the impression that this is any good on the first day. You're not even supposed to eat it on the first day. You're supposed to eat it on the second day. So there we have it. You know what I want to try right now? I want to try the pierogi. If you have any questions, why, I'll certainly answer them when you write for recipes. Let me taste the pierogi. That's the one that I think is going to excite me the most. I love these little creatures. Let's try one with the sauerkraut, and I'll try and... Well, here's the cheese one, too. All right, let's try it out here. Let's tell what I think. You don't want these things to be too thick. You have to roll the dough fairly thin, you see? See, the sauerkraut is just gorgeous. And mushroom. You know what? Irina, dear, these are almost as good as yours. They're almost as good as yours. Absolutely terrific food. Today we've tried to prepare, not tried, we've done it. A pot roast with dill. Easy to do, takes a long time to cook. Last half hour, remember, you had sour cream. We made our own Polish sausage and put them in a plastic seal bag. We made pierogi with 3 different fillings. Heavenly things. And finally, we centered down on a hunter's stew, a bigos from Poland, containing any meat that you can possibly get your hands on, simmered with sauerkraut, a little bit of brown sugar, and finally, a classic killing with red wine. That's typical of Polish cuisine. It may look a little heavy to you, but remember, things are very, very rich. And you can spread them out over a great buffet and have a lovely time and extend meat, because you won't eat so much of a single thing, and you can enjoy the Polish table. And to all of my friends here in Chicago who are Polish, I appreciate the special care you've given me. Dziękuję. This is the Frugal Gourmet. I'm glad we could be together today. Until I see you again, I bid you peace. Bye-bye.